Hello, welcome or welcome back. My name is Ari, and this vlog's a little bit different from my norm. As you probably saw from the title, I am reading ARCs in this video. If you're unaware of what an ARC is, it's an advanced reader copy, and I get my ARCs mainly from Netgalley, though there are a couple of other sites that I use. Anyway, for Netgalley, anybody can sign up. If you want to try to get early release or advanced reader copies of books, you can sign up for Netgalley. It's varying degrees of who gets approved for what. Some books are much easier to get than others, but mostly they want you to at least have a history of reviewing books, whether it's a YouTube channel or just on Goodreads, Amazon reviews, whatever. They don't require you to make reviews, but the more reviews you make, the more likely it is you're to get approved. Now, I am going to give you a warning in case you are going to sign up for Netgalley. If you do sign up, only request the books that you are 100% sure you are going to read. You are going to get approved for more books than you think you're going to get approved for. And if you request just everything that sounds remotely interesting, you're going to have a huge backlog of books that you requested and they want you to read and give feedback on, and then your entire priority is going to be reading those. If that's fine with you, like if you request 10 books and you can read 10 books in a month, that's great. If you request 10 books and you only read one book every 2 months, not so great. So make sure that you're only requesting books that you're 100% guaranteed to read. That's my advice as a newbie. So a reason I say that is Netgalley's standard is that they want you to have rated or to have read and given feedback on the Netgalley site of 80% of the books you have been approved for. The first 10 don't count. You can't hit that 80% until you hit, actually I think it's 20. You don't hit the 80% until you've read at least 20 books, or at least you don't get a badge for it. But once you hit the 20, the idea is to have 80%. So if you've read like a shit ton of books and you've reviewed most of them, then you would have a pretty decent backlog. I like to always keep it above 80% as much as I possibly can, because I'm more likely to get approved for the books that I want because I have that very, very high 80% or higher rating. Right now I'm at 78%, which is why I want to get this backlog. I've been around 82% for quite a few months, and then I got approved for like quite a few books at like 3 or 4 books at once, and it dropped me down to 78%. I'm reasonably sure if I read one book I'll go back up to 80, but then as soon as I get approved I'll drop right below 80 again. So I want to get like 4 or 5 books off of my to be read list on Netgalley and get it high enough above 80% that I can get approved for quite a few things and not have to like stress about fitting something into my TBR right now. My goal in this video is to read as many books as I can that have already been published. I have 4 or 5, I don't know, I'm not looking at it right now, books on my list that I got approved for and for one reason or another blew past the publication date. So just catch up with the backlog is the goal right now. The first book that I'm going to read, and all of these are going to be up on here because they're all ebooks, is Beautiful Nightmare by L.C. Sun, I think is what the author's name is. I could have the initials wrong, but it's on here right now, so you can see it. This book I actually requested in January. I think it was like a cover request. I was just browsing through and I was like, oh, that's such a really pretty cover. and then requested it, and then I haven't read it. I think I've even put it on like a couple of TBRs and still haven't read it. So this is top priority. This actually released in 2019, and I guess when I requested it, it was like a trying to drum up some ratings and stuff like that prior to the release of the second book, and then the first book had re-released for, or had been re-upped for a, I guess it's not an arc because it's not advanced, but like a free copy for reviewers. So I've had this for 7 months and it's been out for like 2 years. So this is the priority to get off my backlist. I don't really remember much about it. I do know it's paranormal romance, and I'm usually down for some paranormal romance, so why the hell not? We'll read it, we'll see how I get along with it. I'll come back and give you the down low of yes, get it, or no, you could probably skip this one, and then we'll talk about what book I'm reading after that. Alright, I'm back a lot sooner than I thought I would be. That didn't last long. We're DNFing this one really quick. I don't think I can handle this. So the first chapter opens up, and I don't know what the main character's name is, but we're gonna call her Karen because holy fuck is this white woman a Karen. This opens up on her wedding day, and the first chapter is entirely complaining about every little small thing that has ever annoyed her in her life, including her cousin who seems to be her bridesmaid, who comes over to like pick her up for her like spa day and stuff to get ready for the wedding. She complains about how her cousin's always competitive with her and how she's so chipper. It goes on to like her cousin's insulting her and like her weight, and then she's like insulting back. Her aunt shows up and the first thing her aunt says is, wow, you stayed up late, didn't you? And it's just like, I don't want to read about a bunch of women insulting each other, pretending to be friends. That's just not my vibe. On top of that, in the one whole fucking chapter I've read, this is like less than 2% into the book, I've discovered her fiance is an asshole. He's a controlling asshole. He's not even showed up. It's just her thoughts about him and like the background info dump stories she's telling set this guy up to be a complete asshole. She's fantasizing about some dream guy, and I'm just sitting here going like, why are you with people who treat you bad? Why are you even getting married if you seem to have absolutely no desire at all for this marriage? Why are the people that are supposed to be closest with you people you hate? Why are you putting up with this? She doesn't seem to like her job, but we didn't get a whole lot of information on that. And then there was a huge chunk of it that went in talk about how that bullshit stereotype where I'm on my feet all day, so I'm extremely skinny and fit, without really having to diet or exercise, but my boobs and my ass are really big, and I wanted to throw up when I read that. Like, are you fucking kidding me? That is the most obnoxious, pretentious body shaming thing I have read since like 2010. No, I'm not fucking interested in this bullshit. It was also very repetitive. The prologue was like her having this dream, and I could sum up 3 pages in one sentence with like 3 commas. She sees a guy, she's scared to run to him, but she knows that she can trust him. And it literally repeats those 3 things over and over and over again for 3 pages and with no additional context. Oh wait, there was additional context. He smells like cinnamon, which she has now said 7 times within like 2 chapters. Is that this man in her dreams smells like cinnamon. I am so annoyed. And I'm not gonna suffer through reading any more of this book when I am this annoyed right from the get-go. So I'm gonna DNF this. I don't know what I'm going to read next. I'm not gonna read an arc next. I'm gonna grab one of the regular books on my TBR. But when I get to another arc, I'll be back to talk to you some more. Hello, I am back again, and this time I'm going to read a real book, like I promise. Next up is going to be a short story collection called Small Magic by Terry Brooks. Now, Terry Brooks is the author of the Shannara series, and I had originally picked this up like at the very end of 2020 or really early in 2021 because I was super excited to do my reread of Shannara. And if you guys have been around for a little bit, you'll know that the reread didn't go so well. So I have just continuously put this off because I was not interested in reading Terry Brooks because I wasn't having a good time. So this is short story collection. Some of them are set in the Shannara universe and some of them are set in his other universe, which I've never read anything from, but we'll see. We'll see how this goes. This collection also runs like a collection of short stories he's written between like 1977 and then like somewhere in the 2000s. It could be 2020, it could be something else. I think it's on the cover, but the cover's not in front of me right now, but you might be able to see this right now. Anyway, I'll come back to you once I finish this short story collection. Okay, I have finished Small Magic by Terry Brooks, and as I think I said earlier, this is a short story collection. So if I counted correctly, it's 11 stories. One of them, the first one, I don't think has anything at all to do with any of his like series that he writes. Is just like a standalone short story. So the other ones, there were 2 that were set in his Magic Kingdom series, which is just not my style of books. Those are kind of like silly stories and I'm not interested. I read one of them and I hated it, so I skipped the other one. Then all of the rest of them were set in the Shannara universe. 2 of them were the Word and the Void part of the Shannara universe, which is like modern US. And then the rest of them were like classical fantasy Shannara. All of them, except for one, were like early Shannara books. So from like the first 2 series, first 2 original series, I should say. Technically, they go through like the Word and the Void part would make it still the early series if you read it in chronological order. But one of them was from like later on in the series, and I don't remember if I had read the book that it was off of in my like youth, but I haven't reread it recently. So that one's kind of like oh, I understood what was going on a basic level, but wasn't really familiar with the characters like I was with the other books, or the longer books. Also, if you've read through Shannara and you really like Shannara, this is just like supplemental stuff. I guess there are spoilers in here for a lot of the Shannara stuff, so maybe you shouldn't pick it up unless you've already read Shannara. Unless you don't care about spoilers. I'm somebody who doesn't care about like spoilers, because for me, a book is not about like what happens at the end of the book. It's about like the journey getting there. So I guess if you care about spoilers, don't pick this up unless you've read Shannara, because it is very, very full of spoilers. There you go. I will say that there were 3 stories featuring a like supporting character from the Wish song of Shannara named Garrett Jax. And apparently Garrett Jax is one of Terry Brooks' favorite characters that he's ever written, and I don't think Terry Brooks got enough of him. Anyway, that's enough about that. I ended up giving it 3 stars. It was fine, but I feel very mediocre about it. But I'm going to move on to the next arc, and that is something that I forgot the name of already. Next up is a book called The Storm's Betrayal by Corey L. Lee, and that is the sequel to Weave the Lightning, which I read earlier this year. So I can't talk a whole lot about The Storm's Betrayal because it will contain spoilers for this book. So I'm going to talk to you and tell you a little bit about what was in this book. So this is a like communist Russia-esque type story where this universe that is set in, that it's like a parallel to Russia or communist Russia, is a place where certain people have this ability to use lightning to like create things, and the government uses them to create weapons, and the government doesn't really care about individual lives. It's somebody, or they're more than happy to let one of these magic users die in the pursuit of creating something like extreme or powerful, like a powerful weapon, a powerful sword, knife, tank, gun, whatever. All right, this is a story about a young man who was recruited into the army, and he was raised in an army family and kind of feels a lot of loyalty to his country, and he's starting to like go through the school and question all of this like blind loyalty. And then a girl who was raised in like the resistance, and she and her family are part of the resistance, and that's her entire life, and she's never believed the propaganda and the hype. But they both have like this lightning based power, and it just kind of follows them. It's young adult, it's a love story, but I actually really enjoyed it. So when the opportunity to get the sequel came up, I picked it up, but I never really got around to reading it. I think I picked the sequel up just like a week or 2 before it was actually released, so I didn't have a whole lot of time prior to its release to read it, and then it just never came up as like a huge priority to read. So we're making it a priority now, and I'll report back in a little bit letting you know what I think of it. So I finished The Storm's Betrayal, and it was actually really good. Like, I enjoyed this so much. A lot of the times, the second book in a series will be very, like, slumpy a little bit, like a sophomore slump, where the author is focused on, like, building the world and building up the plot for the big conclusion in the third book. This was like, I don't know, I'm gonna say like a 500 something page book, and there were sections in the middle where it got pretty slow, and I was like, okay, I get it, let's move on from here. And I kind of like got distracted by TikTok or YouTube or whatever for a little while and put the book down. But overall, this was like a really good add to this series. I liked it. This, I don't know how to describe this series. It's like the later political Hunger Games novels, but Soviet Russia, but also like weirdly liberal about certain aspects, like gender identity and sexual preference is just like a not thing in this universe. Like it is perfectly normal to be gay or straight or polyamorous, and no one's going to like look at you weird or bat an eye. And then there's also 3 genders. You can be female, male, or like genderqueer and use like they them pronouns, and like which ones you choose, you just designate like what gender you are by the amount of earrings you wear. And that's it. People look at your earrings and they don't like try to guess what gender you are. They just look at your earrings and go, oh, 2 earrings, female. Oh, 1 earring, male. Oh, 3 earrings, they them pronouns. How fucking easy is that? So it's just like this interesting conglomerate of like such different things that you wouldn't think work well together, but really actually work super, super well together. So if you're interested in picking up kind of this verges on the edge of like young adult and adult, so kind of new adult, like the characters are on the younger side, like older teens, maybe early 20s. But there's nothing about it that is particularly like young adult, and it does have some adult themes. So I would put this in like a new adult category. But yeah, it was really good. I highly recommend if it all sounds interesting to you. Start with the first book though, not the one I just read. So the next book that I am reading, I don't remember the name of. Let me grab my Kindle so I can get the name. Next up, I am reading The Devourer Below, and if you've been in my channel for a while, you understand why I picked this, and it was because of this cover. For some reason, these Arkham books, which are like Cthulhu mythos or Lovecraftian mythos, the covers that they've been doing for these are so freaking awesome. You have no idea. But this is a short story Arkham Horror collection, so I'm kind of excited. I love, like, my favorite way to consume horror is through short stories. I think the shorter it is, the creepier it is. So, personal preference, whatever. This is going to be the last book that I read in this vlog because everything else I have is something that hasn't come out yet. So this is the last catch-up book. All right, the final book that I am reading for this video was The Devourer Below by various authors because this is a short story collection. So all of these books take place in the Arkham Horror universe. Arkham Horror is a tabletop game based off of Lovecraftian mythos, think Cthulhu, and they take place in the 1920s in a city called Arkham. And Arkham is based off of Salem, Massachusetts, according to a story that Lovecraft wrote. Take like New York City in the 1920s, but put it where Salem, Massachusetts in. I don't know if you can hear the crows in the background, but they're loud. Sorry, I can't make the birds shut up. Anyway, it's kind of cool, and if you really like the golden age of detective mystery stories and want to sprinkle it with a little bit of like fantasy horror, I think you would really like these books. I don't like the golden age of detective stories, but I do like Lovecraftian mythos, even though Lovecraft in and of himself is a horrible human being. But I don't feel particularly icky supporting him like I do some other authors because he's dead. So he's not getting anything out of me enjoying anything in the Lovecraftian universe. You don't care about all of these side tangents. You want to know what the book was about. It is just like a bunch of different short stories. Most of them have like a detective theme, though not all of them do. The most interesting thing I can say about these is there's no good guy characters. The good guys or the heroes are at best morally gray, and sometimes they're kind of evil. So to me, that was the most interesting part. It's not particularly terrifying in any way. Most of the horror is like body horror. If you're afraid of the dark, things like that. The most interesting story to me in this book was Labyrinth. And basically the setup for this story is people with a very specific birthmark are being targeted by a cultist of Udmordhoth, which is the evil Cthulhu-like god in this particular universe. A private eye meets up with a librarian to try to figure out what it is about this tattoo, and the librarian's like, wait, I recognize that birthmark. I said tattoo. A detective meets up with a librarian trying to figure out what's up with the birthmark, and she's like, wait, I recognize this birthmark, and goes and finds like an old story, and so it's like a story within a story. The Labyrinth is mostly about like this story that the librarian is reading to the detective, and it's a retelling of the ancient Greek labyrinth tale. But add Lovecraftian mythos to the Labyrinth story, which was really, really cool. And I had recently read Ariadne, which is another another retelling of the Labyrinth from Ariadne's point of view. So it was very interesting to go and read this other retelling from like a completely different perspective and combining two different mythos together to create one story. And that one was by far my favorite, and of course it had absolutely nothing to do with Arkham or the 1920s. So maybe it's the setting that I didn't enjoy as much, but overall I enjoyed it. It's just a 3-star. I was like, oh, these are good, but nothing there I'm like, oh my god, these are so great, I need to read every other Arkham Horror novel. Will I continue to read Arkham Horror? Probably, because of the cover. Like, I can't get past these covers. I love them so much, and I keep picking them up just for the cover, which is fine. I'm probably gonna start buying them and just collecting all of them just for the cover. Anyway, that's the end of this video. Let me know if any of these arcs that I read in this video sounded interesting to you down in the comments below, or if you were thinking about reading them and now that I've reviewed them you're like, nope, I'm good. I will see you in the next video. Bye.